She's mine. Even if she's packing a suitcase in the middle of the night, even if she thinks she can vanish back to some quiet little town and pretend the last 5 years never happened, she's still mine. The penthouse on the 128th floor of One Vanderbilt was dark except for the city bleeding gold and crimson through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Avery Sinclair stood barefoot on the cold Italian marble, phone still warm from the call with the obstetrician, who'd just confirmed what she already knew: the pregnancy was terminated this afternoon, discreetly, expensively, irreversibly. The doorbell cut through the silence like a blade. She zipped the Louis Vuitton suitcase, took a breath that tasted like goodbye, and opened the door. Damien Sterling filled the frame. Black leather jacket, blacker mood, the faint scent of winter air and Creed Aventus clinging to him. Without a word, he tossed the keys to the matte black Bugatti Chiron into her arms like they weighed nothing. "Why'd you change the door code?" His voice was low, rough from the transatlantic flight he'd apparently cut short. Avery kept her voice soft, the way she always did when he was like this. "Paparazzi. Crazy fans. You never know." He gave a soft, derogatory laugh. "This building's security is tighter than Fort Knox. A stray cat couldn't get past the lobby, let alone a person. Some people still get in," she thought. "Like your real love who kicked the door in yesterday and threw my cat out the window." She took his jacket, hung it on the rack. Under the familiar alpine notes of his cologne lingered something sweeter. Jasmine, expensive female. The exact same perfume that had drenched the woman who'd stood in this exact spot 24 hours ago. Damien's thumb brushed beneath her eye, catching the last trace of puffiness. "You've been crying." "Sad movie," she lied. His gaze dropped to her bare feet on the cold floor, and before she could step back he bent, scooped her up like she weighed nothing, one arm under her knees, the other hand splayed possessively across her ass as he carried her to the sofa. He sat with her in his lap, the city glittering behind him like a ransom pile of diamonds. "People love gossip," he said, voice velvet and venom. "They think if a woman gets pregnant, she can march straight into a ring and a penthouse title. If it were that easy, every social climber in Manhattan would be swollen with some air by now." His palm slid over her still flat stomach, clinical, proprietary. "This baby had a purpose. Be smart, baby girl. Don't ruin it by getting ideas above your station. The position of Mrs. Sterling isn't handed out because someone spread her legs at the right time. Touch her and die. Hurt her and I'll burn the world down. But I'll ruin her myself if she ever forgets who she belongs to." She rested her head against his shoulder, exhausted. Was all she gave him. That was when he noticed the open suitcase by the door. His brows drew together, a flicker of something dangerous. "Going somewhere? My parents miss me. Mid-Autumn Festival is coming up." He relaxed barely. "Stay a few extra days. Keep away from anyone with an agenda. We'll talk about the baby when I'm back from Tokyo." He never mentioned the woman who'd flown in from LA yesterday. Avery never asked. "She's mine to break, mine to keep, mine to discard when I'm done. And I'm nowhere near done." 5 years ago, Avery Sinclair had been a good girl. Top of her teaching college, literature major, the daughter every Chinese parent bragged about. Then one suffocating summer afternoon, she stared at the roses a shy colleague had left on her desk and felt her whole obedient life closing like a coffin lid. She quit, cut her bangs, dyed her hair honey blonde, and flew to Beijing for a survival show. She made top 12, got signed, and 6 months later was drowning, blacklisted, harassed by a sleazy producer with a comb-over and octopus hands. That night, in a smoky private room thick with cigar smoke and older men's laughter, she met Damien Sterling. He lounged at the head of the table like a bored king, black shirt open at the throat, Patek Philippe catching the light every time he lifted his cigarette, eyes the color of a storm about to break. When their gazes locked across the room, he smiled, slow and filthy, and she felt her good girl heart stop, then restart at triple speed. 3 days later, he pulled up outside her agency in a blood-red Ferrari 488 convertible, one arm draped over the wheel, a bouquet of 200 red roses bleeding petals across the passenger seat. He looked at her through the crowd of screaming fans and said, loud enough for the whole world to hear, "Come here, little wife." The internet exploded. Hashtag Damien Sterling has a girlfriend trended for 72 hours straight. She's mine. Every breath, every moan, tear mine. He spoiled her rotten. Cartier love bracelets stacked up her wrist like golden handcuffs. Van Cleef necklaces worth more than most people's houses. A pied a terre in Paris, a villa in Tuscany, a yacht christened Good Girl anchored in Capri. He flew her on the red-eye to the Alps because she once said she missed snow. Booked the entire mountain, the private jet, the chalet with the indoor infinity pool where he pressed her naked body against the glass wall, city lights glittering below while he took her from behind and growled against her ear, "Look at your kingdom, baby girl. All of this is yours as long as you're mine." He produced movies for her, threatened directors who made her cry on set, bought awards when the voting didn't go her way. When a rival actress laughed that Avery's acting was only good for crying in bed, Damien got drunk, called the Academy at 3 a.m., and had the girl awarded a sarcastic golden broom statuette the next week. Childish. Billionaire childish. And Avery fell harder. Until Juliette Rossi came back. Juliette, tall, raven-haired, cheekbones sharp enough to cut glass, had been Damien's first love, the one who left him bleeding on a rain-soaked freeway when she chose Hollywood over him. Now she was an Oscar nominee with a vindictive streak whiter than the Pacific. She stormed into the penthouse with 4 bodyguards, smashed every vase, and dangled Avery's cat out the window until the cat screamed. Avery stood frozen, tears streaming, unable to even scream back. Juliette laughed. "So this is the little pet he replaced me with. Soft. Breakable. Cute." She dropped the cat, thank God it landed on the balcony below, and leaned in close. "He told me himself, darling. As soon as I agreed to come home, he'd get rid of your accident." Her gaze dropped to Avery's barely there bump. "He needs a legitimate heir, not some starlet's bastard. And me? I can't give him children. So guess whose baby just became inconvenient? Mine to ruin. Mine to erase." That night Avery scheduled the procedure. Now, hours after the clinic, Damien's hand was still on her empty womb like he owned the void he'd created. He kissed her temple, tasting salt from tears she hadn't realized were falling. "Go visit your parents. Be back in a week." She nodded against his throat. He left for Tokyo the next morning, the Bugatti growling down into the private elevator that led straight to the underground garage. Avery watched the numbers descend, PHLB2, until the screen went dark. She dragged the suitcase to the door, paused, walked back, and took the single photograph they'd ever taken together. Him behind her, arms locked around her waist, chin on her head, both of them laughing on that yacht in Capri. She tucked it into her pocket. The vase he'd bought her in Murano was already gone, smashed yesterday by Juliette's stiletto heel. She left the penthouse keys on the marble counter, took the service elevator down, and walked out into Manhattan's cold autumn dawn. No driver, no security, no Damien, just Avery Sinclair, 28 years old, no longer pregnant, no longer his. And for the first time in 5 years, she could breathe. "She's mine. She just doesn't know I'll chase her to the ends of the earth if that's what it takes. Run, little wife. I'll always find you."